communication's hard for people. And a lot of times it wasn't modeled for us in our childhood, good communication, right? So now they're up to this huge challenge of like managing natural human instincts and skills that were not maybe developed and honed.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Welcome to Eyes Wide Open. I'm Nick Thompson. Today, our guest is Dr. Frankie. Dr. Frankie is a licensed clinical psychologist and renowned relationship expert and dating expert in the LGBTQ community, including matchmaking, relationships, and she's a board-certified sex therapist. Also the founder of Little Gay Book and Little Black Book, right? Both of them?
Yes.
Yes. Personalized matchmaking and single services. And what's crazy to me, and I heard this on your YouTube, you have set up over 25,000 matches over 10 years.
So it's a decade and a half. Over a decade. We're celebrating 16 years.
My goodness. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And for perspective, so I started doing this to measure followers that I lose on Instagram. And so if you think about 25,000 matches, that's 50,000 people. That's like a football game.
It's a lot.
Number
it's a lot.
of people.
Yes.
Like in this, like a smaller football stadium, like in Chicago, I think there's like 50, 60,000 people there. That's how many people you've matched. That's insane.
And it's a combination. It's not just through matchmaking, I want to say. It's through also our events that are all over the country. We do speed dating events. We have had dinner parties, all sorts of ways that we can make magic happen through authentic connections, real people, face-to-face.
Yes.
That's what we're all about. So yeah, it's the combination of all of it.
And I love that. And I definitely want to talk about real life versus apps. I recently fell into singles events here in Chicago and started a company with my friend who is a relationship and dating therapist here in Chicago. I'm in Chicago. And we held our first event like a month ago, and I expected 20 people to show up, and we had over 250 show up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And we had like bars and hotels reaching out to us within like days of this kind of going like mini viral in Chicago. And we've already heard of a couple couples that are like dating now. It's been 5-6 weeks. We set up our next one for January, and I like didn't have that on my bingo card.
Well, it speaks to how hungry we are to have real, authentic connections. We are just feeling so hungry for it. So I love that. I mean, I'm sure you weren't ready for that turnout, and it was probably super overwhelming, but I bet everyone there was thrilled to be in a room with so many people that they could potentially connect with. It's inspiring. It's exciting.
It is. And what was so cool from my perspective was that it was nice to kind of host and be able to be like, oh, you want to talk to that person? I'm the host. I can go introduce you to that person and they have to talk to you kind of thing. And then also having, her name is Anita, my therapist friend there, who's, 20 years plus, I think now in relationship and couples therapy, and have her there to kind of like coach people on different skills and like how to calm your anxiety. It's quite the experience, and I'm really excited for the next one.
Yeah, I want to hear about how that goes. Yeah, see if you can get some press there to capture it, to help motivate people to come out and not be so fearful, be bold, get out there. And if you have you're there in it, helping to support people, helping them to have good, conversations that are depthful. Because the fear is that you go alone to these events, you feel super vulnerable and exposed. It's like, oh my gosh, do I look like that? Am I going to be that person who's like the outcast that nobody even notices, the creep on the corner, like, of the room? Which no, like you're in it, you're looking, right? As a host, we're looking to make sure that everybody is feeling included, that we're supporting them. We're conduits. We're just like masters of connection. That's the way I see myself.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's, oh, go ahead.
Like we don't, like what I say is I'm just a conduit. Like when people we don't make, we create opportunities for magic to happen, but the people involved are the ones that actually create the magic. So I'm just the vehicle to reach the magic.
Yes. That's a good way to look at it. And I think what I noticed at this event and post this event, and I think this is to what you were saying, people are kind of hungry for this connection, is I feel like people, when you go to one of these events, and ours was, we didn't close the bar for the event, but like the bar owner limited what would be there. So 95% of the people in there were single. We had name tags for everyone. We had little like cue cards on tables to like be conversation starters, like all of this stuff. And what I realized and what people were saying is it kind of eliminates that initial barrier of real life where you look at someone at a bar, if you're me and you're a guy, and I look at a girl at a bar and I'm like, oh, like she's cute, I like her vibe, whatever that is. And then I stop and I think, well, what if her boyfriend's in the bathroom and I'm 6'5". If he's bigger than me, that's rare, but comes out, or, how do I start that conversation, not be creepy, all of that kind of stuff. And you may still get some creeps for sure, but you kind of eliminate those initial barriers to starting a conversation when everyone's single, their name, and maybe you've got something to kind of prompt a conversation with them, or you've got hosts that are willing to like broker introductions and get that conversation started. It's a total different experience.
Totally.
And that's what people liked.
Oh, for sure. Because you feel like you're going to flop less. There's scaffolding there. And It's scary. I can't imagine approaching somebody. I'm just visualizing that scene, approaching somebody that actually is with somebody, their partner's in the bathroom, and you're like, oh shit, now what?
Yeah.
But in actuality, maybe you're just friendly and you're just saying hi. I don't know. I mean, I'm a female, so it's different, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I think we kind of actually talked a little bit about this in a roundabout way, but I think what's so interesting now is, and I experienced this myself, but what's so interesting now is there's so many ways that you can like upset someone or offend someone or come across the wrong way or whatever, that even if I'm talking to someone in a bar or at an event or something, like I don't know what to do to show interest. So because I don't want to like touch someone on the shoulder or something that doesn't want to be touched on the shoulder. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I had a couple moves back when I was serial dating, like open the door, hand on the back. Like I'm nervous to do that stuff just because things have changed.
Right. Since the Me Too movement, I think that like when I talk to men, that is a lot of it. It's like they don't want to misstep and they don't want anybody to misunderstand their intention. So what's happening is there's this pullback now where chivalry, like there are so many people that I talk to that are like, I love chivalry and I don't see it anymore. I feel like it's dead because of all of this fear now to be too like pushy, or so the holding the doors and the paying the bill and offering, it's like all of that is sort of diminished.
Mm-hmm.
Which is,
I remember I went
heartbreaking.
It is. It's like the simple basics of dating no longer. But then what I think that does is it creates kind of this paralysis between two people where like maybe they do actually like each other, but one is like he or she or whomever is showing no interest, and the other one's like, I don't know how to show interest in a way that's like appropriate for the situation. And then you've got two people that may like each other and
don't even know it.
They don't even know it, and they go their separate ways.
I always say like communication. So it's like just verbal. Say, how do you feel about this? If I were to open the door for you, or if I were to offer to, pay for our dinner, is that okay with you? Does that feel okay to you? Just be curious. Like, don't make assumptions and bring it up in conversation. Who doesn't appreciate wanting to be better understood, or right? Like who doesn't appreciate
or ask
that?
How they feel.
Yes.
I had a podcast recording yesterday, and one of the things that we talked about, we were talking about men's mental health. It was a mental health advocate and speaker and all this stuff. And one of the things that I've started doing really recently is instead of saying, what do you think about something? I ask them how they feel about it. The answers are totally different. Mm-hmm. So if you think of like, what do you think about, splitting the check on the first date? That answer is typically going to be different if you ask them, what do you think about it versus how do you feel about splitting the check?
Yes.
Because they might think they're supposed to culturally say, I'm my own person, I should split, or even culturally say, well, certain person should pay on the first date because it's a first date and that's chivalry. And instead of like, how do you feel, where how you feel is how you actually want it to go, as opposed to what someone in culture or society is telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet you get so much more fruitful information when you access the feeling. Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. All right. So I got to ask now that we're a few minutes into this, but what's top of mind for you right now? It's I'm going to just say it. I know I said let's not say. Holidays are right around the corner. By the time this comes out, holidays just are on the other side of the corner probably. But what's top of mind for you right now as we head into the new year?
So I can tell you with the election, that is like everybody's talking about the fact that like, you know, they're noticing an increase in marriages right now since the election. And I think from my perspective, what I'm seeing, isn't that interesting? Yeah. What I'm seeing though, I work with singles. I know there's an influx, and I'm seeing singles go, you know what? I'm not going to date right now. I want to put things on hold. I am feeling really disillusioned about what's just happened. And I doubt I'm going to find somebody who, you know, where we're not going to offend each other because our political views differ. People are so afraid, right? There's such a polarization. So they're like, screw it, I'm not going to date. And then there are people who are dating who are like, you know what? I don't ever want to be single again. I'm just going to stick with the person I'm with and we're going to go get married. So that's top of mind.
Wow.
How do you deal with it, right? What do you do?
Yeah, you know what's funny, and maybe this is a good question here, but my friend I was telling you about beforehand, before we recorded, he was just texting me the other day about how he liked this guy. They went on a couple dates. The guy ghosted him after they talked about politics. And he's like, it just sucks because it's something he's very passionate about. And that is such a deal breaker for people. Now, I'm the most left person I know, like legitimately, despite what you might read on the internet, I'm the most left person I know. And I think I've dated conservative women, I've dated liberal women, I've dated centrist women, I've dated all across the spectrum. And like, you have to communicate, as you said, but like, I struggle to see why people have such disdain for someone they may love in so many other ways now over political systems. So, but you probably see a lot of that.
I do. And it's so polarizing, and anything on the extremes, I always say anything too extreme is problematic. Too rigid is problematic. We need to give people the benefit of the doubt. We all have differing viewpoints and opinions, and I feel like we should embrace that. We don't have to agree with each other. What we need to do is have conversations and be able to have mutual respect for one another. And again, back to the word curious. Listen more than speak, and just be curious. Suspend judgment, suspend criticism, and don't take something that they say and overly generalize that about them and make assumptions about them. So it is making us really become more isolated, more lonely, more depressed, more anxious, because we're not able to connect. It's cutting off. Yeah. Cutting off
large amounts of the society. I had a political commentator on after the election to talk about the election. And this was one of the things he said he's like, don't like cut off relationships with family and people you've known your whole life because you disagree about politics. And it's just that kind of stuff to me is totally ludicrous, because we're all nuanced individuals and we all have our reasons. And that's why I think if you listen to one another, you can agree to disagree. But if you listen to one another, you can really understand. And I think that's where we just don't have that anymore. Everyone just kind of wants to like vomit their politics on people and walk away.
Yes. And it's also making me think it's like, you've got to also, with that, there has to be some level of sensitivity. For example, a childhood really close friend of mine, we grew up in New York City together, and she was on my social media on Facebook, and she now lives in Europe. We haven't really had a close relationship since we were children, since like 5th or 6th grade. And she's extreme. I mean, I'm Middle Eastern, I'm Israeli. And she went extreme to the other, like was saying it's a genocide and all of this, right? And started posting all of that rhetoric on my social media. I initially was like, hey.
Wait, how was she posting it on your social media? Like
comments,
tagging you or comments?
Something. I'm so bad with social media. I have a whole team that manages my stuff.
Good for
but
you.
it was coming up on my social media where she was posting. She must have done a post on Facebook. You can post or commenting. People were mentioning about, because they know that I'm Jewish, and it's actually my profile photo has the Israeli flag. And so people are communicating on there, and she's talking about how she's my best friend, and then going ahead and posting all this sensationalized news, not even rooted in fact. But I don't even want to get off on that tangent. But the point is, it's just
it's like disrespecting your relationship, though. If she wants to talk about it, she should talk to you about it, like
exactly,
off the computer and
offline, right? Yeah. And the other thing is, it's like she can have opinions and viewpoints, but be sensitive to the fact that I'm visibly Jewish, I'm Israeli, and just be sensitive. It doesn't mean that she can't express some of her views, but it's like sometimes people are taking it too far. Mm-hmm. So it may sound contradictory. I'm saying talk about these things and respect one another, but there also has to be some level of consideration and sensitivity.
Yeah,
awareness, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to me. I see people don't know how to debate anymore and have honest conversations and listen and all of that stuff. But I just wish that people, especially people that people they don't know on the internet too, you should respect them, but you should really not air your dirty laundry in public with your friends, your family, and your relationship. That's very bad behavior.
Yes. Yes. So in just thinking about, I want to go back to when you think about dating and when you're sitting down for a first date, why are people feeling compelled right now to have conversations about politics? It's always been a rule. You save that for later. You don't talk about your physical ailments or your mental illness. You don't talk about your exes. You don't talk about your history of traumas. And you don't talk about politics. But now what's happening is that because we're surrounded by such intensity and escalation around it, we're starting a first date with the subject of politics. No brainer. That is not what we should be talking about.
That's a really good point. That is a really good point. Why are people starting? But I guess forever now, it seems like it's 8, 10, 12 years almost, where it's just been this endless nonstop news cycle where it's and everyone's in their algorithm too, which is the worst part of it, because you're just in an echo chamber of whatever
confirmation
you hear.
Bias, echo chamber. And also there's stuff that people are regurgitating. So much of it is not rooted in fact. I'm so confused. I be wait, that sounds like that. I was alive during that time and I don't remember that happening. I have moments like that and I go and I research and it's not, but they believe it 150% because they heard it on TikTok.
TikTok of all places.
Right? So we're getting our news from social media and you're just being fed. You have this, right? You're being fed reinforcing information to just cement your belief system that's already, it's not even, not rooted in fact. So we're being
propagandized almost by ourselves in some cases. And that's why I always tell people, because I'm an avid news and politics junkie. I listen to all sides of it because I want to form my own opinion, because I know I'm in algorithms. And now I'm mostly in meme algorithms, which is fun because I get to laugh a lot. But
so
about
important.
Politics, But I encourage people, and I encourage them on the show. I'm you got to get your news sources from several different places. You've got to make your own opinion, because there isn't anyone that's really giving unbiased, factual-based recollections of what's going on. Almost everybody has some sort of agenda or some sort of viewpoint, whether they state it or not. I appreciate the people that state it, but you're in these algorithms that are just feeding you the same stuff over and over, making you hate the same people for the same reasons, and forcing their way into your thought pattern, and also eliminating critical thinking skills
and weakening us and dumbing us down as humanity. We are just being weakened, more vulnerable, less support systems. And how people aren't seeing this, I don't know. I'm just how are they not recognizing?
My mind.
Yes.
It blows my mind.
The other thing is, it's like, I agree with you. You need to look at different sources, not just if you're really liberal, just paying attention to liberal news. No, you need to look at what the more conservative news is reporting on and all of this, right? To get a more balanced viewpoint. But I feel like we're all stretched in so many ways. Like I'm thinking like my day to day, I don't have a ton of time to look into all the, so how it's like, that's another way in which they're getting the best of us, because we're just picking up what's
running
quick.
Around.
Yes. And we don't have the time. So we're just latching on to that headline and running with it.
That 45-second TikTok video that's explaining these complex world events to you in 45 seconds.
It's not serving us.
No, it's not.
Let's be smarter.
Yeah, it is. All right. I'm sorry. I don't know how I took us down that path. I didn't see that coming.
That's my fault. You were asking me what's top of mind right now.
Yeah. And
coming up. Yeah.
I hear you. I did not know that. I am kind of shocked about like the marriages and people. It's like two extremes, which I guess makes sense because that's how everything is. But you're an expert in matchmaking, an expert in love, an expert in sex, an expert in all of these very critical to relationships and not being lonely. But I'm guessing you didn't wake up as a 5-year-old and decide these were the things you wanted to spend your life's work doing. So my favorite question, and it's always a fun one to track, what did you want to be when you were a little kid? How'd that change into where you are now over the years?
Love it. Love it. Believe it or not, I wanted to be in the circus, and I wrote
that's a first.
Barnum and Bailey a letter that my dad never actually sent them. I found out years later he never sent it. But I wanted to be, I was a gymnast, and I just wanted, and I also did, I was a figure skater. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to join the circus. And clearly that's not what I did. I ended up, I was initially, I wanted to be an anchor. So I went into television, radio. That's what I studied in college. And
where'd you go to school?
I went to Northeastern, which
cool.
Crazily enough, the acceptance rate right now is like 6 or 8%. Insane. It was back then, it was sort of like people's safety school. And I loved the fact that there was like this co-op program where I could go to school for 6 or 8 months and I could work for several months, go back to school and come out with a kick-ass resume. I was like, this is brilliant. And I loved every moment of it. Like it's an amazing school. And now it's impossible to get into. One of my own kids applied and got rejected. And I was like, I graduated with honors. You couldn't accept my kid.
Some like referral program or something,
for real.
Alumni program.
Not cool. But anyway, I ended up working for like Montel Williams, Inside Edition. I was working for television. And this is pre-Me Too movement. So the sexual harassment was insane. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I can make it in this industry. This is unbearable.
Wow.
And I'm complaining to my therapist in New York. Every Jewish kid on the Upper West Side had a therapist. And that's when my therapist said, Frankie, you are a natural, like, you need to be a therapist. Because I was like, I need to be somewhere where I can just not experience this level of discomfort.
That's awful.
It was awful. Yeah.
Because you hear these stories, but I've never like met anyone who experienced that or talks about it. That's awful. I'm sorry you went through that.
Like I remember sitting in Deborah Norville. She was the anchor at the time. I was sitting in the studio watching her record.
That was Inside Edition, right?
Yes.
I remember her.
So.
I used to watch that. I think I used to watch that. I
worked for American Journal too. I can't remember. It's so long ago, but one of them, I'm sitting in studio watching her live right there in front of me. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how you know what I mean? Like I just couldn't, I wanted to be where she was. And I just did not see a path forward from where I was sitting as a little PA. So then I just went and got a GRE test booklet or whatever and studied and got into grad school and became a clinical psychologist. And that evolved into really finding that I had a great impact on working with singles and couples and wanting people to help support people in having healthier, deeper relationships. And I was a matchmaker as a kid and I didn't even know it. I matched my father with my eye doctor when I was 14. That was my first successful match. Yeah. So I didn't even know the term matchmaker. Well, I was raised in New York City by two parents who were entrepreneurs. Like they were super preoccupied in their own careers. And I sort of raised myself. And at the time, colored contacts were like the thing. And I have hazel eyes, but I wanted green eyes. So I walked into an optometry office on the Upper West Side and I said, hey, I want to get these lenses. And the optometrist that I was chatting with was this like beautiful Jewish educated woman that, I was like, oh my gosh, you'd be perfect for my dad. My parents had been divorced since I was like 2.
Okay.
And he kept dating. My dad was a fashion designer. So he kept dating these women that were just like, I felt were just in it for the money and the fame and just using my dad. And I thought, okay, this is somebody who has a career, smart, and we're Jewish. And I know that my grandma would be really happy if he married a nice Jewish woman. So anyway, she said to me, well, you're 13 and I can't sell you contact lenses, even though you have cash and you can pay for them. So we can put the order in and I can do your exam right now. And then you're going to need to show up with a parent who can approve this. And I was like, perfect. Got the exam, ran home to my dad. This is before cell phones. And I'm like, okay, you need to meet this person. I need you to show up next week on such and such day, meet me there. And he did. And he knew that I wanted him to meet her. And we were like best buds. It was just me and him at the time. I'm the only child. At that time I was. They married thereafter, within a year. And they have 3 children. They were married for 25 years. Yeah. So.
Wow. You were born to do this.
I was. It's just like, it's a call. It's just, I was put on the path without even realizing it. And then I melded being a psychologist with a matchmaker in 2009, naturally leaned in, right? It's important to lean into your gifts and your strengths. And I just naturally did that. And now full circle, I've done television. It's not funny how life works. Like,
it's so funny.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
It's often very ironic. I always say life is very ironic.
Like if it's meant to be, it's going to eventually happen.
Yeah.
And I found myself on a TV set. I was on MTV on Are You the One as their
I wanted to ask you about that.
relationship expert. And when that opportunity presented itself for a sexually fluid cast, I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. Yes. I've always wanted to do this. So, so I never entered the circus, but life in the dating world can be a circus.
I was going to say that, but when you first said that, I was going to say something about that. I was like, I don't know if that would be taken the wrong way. Because like your work is obviously very good. 25,000 couples. Again, I'll emphasize that 25,000 matches. That's crazy. But I can imagine it is a circus a lot of the time.
It's wild.
And
fun and exciting and so rewarding and so challenging. Like dating is challenging. Relationships are challenging. But like when people are really in it and want it and are honest about the process and realistic about the process, we can be so successful together.
Yeah. What do you think are some of so I actually talked to a matchmaking service this summer. I opted out of it, not to do it. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on or I could have you talk to my therapist because I think we talked about 3 sessions about it.
It's vulnerable. That's what I'll say. It's like you are handing over the reins to a professional and you've got to trust them.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that in your experience, like have been successful in matching people?
Yeah. So people need to have similar values and they vision for like the type of relationship that they want to have. Like, do they want to have a long-term relationship? Do they want a monogamous or polyamorous relationship? That's come up in the last 5 years more and more.
I was going to say, I have people in my life that have dabbled in that. And it's very challenging because they're not always both into it like they might think. It's very strange.
Right. It's very challenging because we're wired as humans to be jealous, to fear abandonment. And so it's like you have to be willing to work with those aspects on a regular basis. And communication's hard for people. And a lot of times it wasn't modeled for us in our childhood, good communication, right? So now they're up to this huge challenge of like managing natural human instincts and skills that were not maybe developed and honed. But more power to them. Like I work with people who are having ethical, non-monogamous relationships and poly relationships. And I always say it's challenging, but if you're up for it, then go ahead, try. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I hear you though. I think people don't communicate about it, and that's where the issues are, because you're not actually on the same page because you're not communicating about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But to answer your question, it's about like, so agreeing that, okay, that like being aware, this is the kind of relationship that I want. These are the values. I have very strong family values, very strong work ethic, that example, like just understanding, like you gotta agree on values, because otherwise it's not going to work out. Right. The other thing is laughter. That's a big thing. If somebody is really fun and funny, they want to laugh with their person. Some people have more, right? Some people don't need that so much, right? So I'm looking at that kind of thing. Personality meshes, yin and yang, balance. I often am not matching people for sameness. I'm looking for a balance.
Yes.
People who are introverted, extroverted, how do they get their energy? How do they get recharged? A real introvert, right? Matching them with somebody who's an extrovert that's really social. Like I'm 100% an extrovert. When I'm alone, it's good to have alone time, but I get drained of my energy. I get my energy from others.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the interesting thing about introverts and extroverts. And I don't want to interrupt you, but we'll table that. We can talk about it, but you can finish your thought on the things that work when you're matching.
Yeah. So also like interests, you want to have overlapping interests, but it doesn't have to be a ton of overlapping interests, but there's got to be also different interests. So that way it keeps it, right? It keeps it interesting and you learn from each other. And so, yeah, I think also in terms of attraction is really important. So if we look at like, what are you attracted to? Are you more of somebody who's attracted to intellect? Do you develop attraction based on emotional connection? Is it more physical for you? Is it about like, do you find when you look at your history of people that you've been attracted to, are they all brunettes? Do they all have a certain body type? Right? Like
it's like, 25% of each of those for me.
Creatures of habit, right? We just keep repeating the same pattern. And that's the beauty of working with a matchmaker, is we help people break patterns of behavior that aren't working for them. And oftentimes people will say, Dr. Frankie, I keep finding myself attracted to narcissists, or really kind of people who are self-absorbed. They're not able to reciprocate in terms of showing up in the relationship. And I'm like, great, thanks for letting me know, because I'm going to be picking for you now. Me and my team are going to be picking for you, and it's going to change it up. So, yeah.
That's good. I think I kind of think like matchmaking, I actually think it is a big thing already. Like it's become a big thing. I could be wrong. You could correct me on that, but I've just seen so many more like companies, matchmakers, like more success coming out of it and stuff like that recently since COVID and the dating apps. But how do you think, go ahead.
It's actually become more mainstream, which is a beautiful thing. I'm so grateful for it, because up until like 15 years ago, when I would say I'm a matchmaker, people would be like, what are you talking about? What is that? You mean like Fiddler on the Roof? Yeah, not a real job. And like, oh yeah, you match people. Like, so yes, I think now that there's Jewish Matchmaker on Netflix, and isn't there Dating on the Spectrum? Not Dating on the there's just Indian Matchmaker, and then kind of an autism spectrum matchmaking show, which is, I can't remember the name for whatever reason right now.
It's Love on the Spectrum.
Love it, love it, love it. Such a feel-good show, and we can learn so much from them. Amazing. But yeah, it's people are now considering matchmaking as an option. And it also is coming out of the situation that we're experiencing with dating apps, feeling really inauthentic, and like we're spinning our wheels and not getting to the outcome that we want, which is to find a quality person or people. Speaking of polyamory, like quality connections with people who are genuine and genuinely honest about what they're wanting and who they're wanting. And it's almost like a prototype. Everybody's saying the same thing on there, and you're like, wait, you can't all be the same. Are you all the same person?
I haven't been on a dating app in a long time, but all I do is hear the worst stories ever.
Yeah.
And there's like fake profiles now making it even worse.
Yeah. And people preying on people's vulnerability and scamming them. And you got to be really careful. I always say, get on my blog to people. I've written about it plenty, how to be smart about it on there. Because you can use, like, it's a good tool, but you got to be mentally prepared for the things that are to come your way and know how to handle it and avoid it and recognize it so that you don't fall into traps, because they're there.
It's like a warning label for a experimental medicine on TV where it's like may result in this, and death.
100%.
That's dating apps.
Yes. Yeah. But I like, to your point, matchmaking is definitely on people's radar, and I feel like it's an industry that's going to explode. And I'm so happy to be a part of it, be here for it. And I want
pioneer of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think that, but it's so true. Yeah. I mean, there were crickets. I was so lonely out here. And now to show up like this, a month ago, I was in Mexico with 130 other matchmakers from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, you feel like these are all people that have been, a lot of them have been in the industry for like, in the last 5 to 8 years, they've popped up. There are very few. They kind of said, stand up if you've been in the industry 25 years, 15 years. And it's like very few people stood up. Wow. And now it's 130. So it's going to grow, and we need it. We need the help.
I think more than ever, we need the help.
We do. And the coaching that's involved in it is so valuable, right? Like we need tools. How do we traverse this landscape now that is it's complex, and people we're like all really afraid to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. We're holding back when we shouldn't. Yeah, we need somebody there to encourage us and to give us very practical, easy ways to have conversations, to express our needs, our wants, and not shut down because we're afraid.
I think too, one thing I noticed, a lot of people with the shutdown, like a lot of people seem to have shut down, and kind of, even if they like you or like someone, they have a hard time kind of expressing it because someone hurt them. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't do, the work to kind of heal themselves. And I mean, I think you wear all those scars no matter what you do for it. Right. But how do you think people can kind of like get out of the past? And I think, I'm in a unique situation where I got married on a reality show, and I'm stuck with that for the rest of my life. Like every 6 months, a new season comes out. I'm like, okay, here's who's still together, who's not on my feed, and people DMing me. It's a nightmare. Like I don't recommend it.
You can't get rid of it.
You can't get rid of it. You literally can't get rid of it, no matter how hard you try. But we're in this area where there's so many ways to connect. You can stalk someone through social media. A lot of people have a burner account where they can get blocked and still go look. And, you can see it all over the internet. You have email, you have text messages, you have all of these ways to communicate with your exes. And I think it kind of keeps people in these situationships longer than they should be. Whereas 30 years ago, it would just be like, this is over. Sure, you got to heal and stuff, but like, you can't call that person anymore. Like, it's really the only form of communication. Hopefully you don't run into them in a bar.
Right.
Or a grocery store.
Yeah. So because they can keep stalking their social media, they stay connected.
Yeah.
And the boundaries.
That's my thought.
Yeah. No, I think it gives us so much access. Like, it makes me think of like how Facebook is used, where there's all these affairs that are coming out of Facebook because people are rekindling their relationships from high school and middle school. They falling back in love. And like back in the day, that wasn't available to us.
No,
so
exactly.
We had to stay in our relationship and work on our relationship instead of trying to find a quick Band-Aid and escape from dealing with what is going to come of that person, that new relationship you have just rekindled with your childhood love. You're holding on to the past and you're running back for that. And the same shit is going to present itself again. Do you really think you're going to, right? Like, jeez. You end one relationship to jump into the next. You don't think that's going to follow you? The issues that came up in that last relationship? For sure they are. So I agree with you. It's like so many, the fact that social media has given us the access and opportunity to connect with each other so easily in these like very superficial ways, it's, I think, harming us more than helping us.
Mm-hmm.
And you're touching on it. So people don't have good boundaries. They stay in these situationships, or they're like holding on to, it's hard to let go of the past, right? Like even you're talking about being guarded and available emotionally for something new. When you're still stalking your ex's Instagram, you're not fully present in what you're newly engaging in, right? You're comparing your life to their life, wondering if they're thinking of you still. Are they stalking your social media? Like all this energy that is being channeled away from what could be beautiful for you in the next relationship. It's detracting from that.
So well said. That's so well said. It's negative energy. It is not moving you in the direction you need to be moving in.
It ended for a reason. Why are we going back there? Like, it's over. If it was good then, you would still be in it then. And say it's the grass is greener. We fought, right? We can all relate to this concept. When the relationship when it gets hard and like the serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all that like euphoric chemicals, when that starts to fade after the limerence phase of your relationship and you're into reality, you know, like, oh, this person isn't perfect. And you're going to jump to what's next. And you're like, oh, the grass is greener over there. It's just an illusion. Let's be real.
That's so true. Well, I think that's part of it too, because now you have the dating apps, the connectivity, the internet, the DMs across every platform you can imagine for social media. And what I think happens, and this is like this is hard for me because when I decide I want to be in a relationship with someone, like it ain't overnight. It's really not even a month. It takes, except for the one, but it takes a while to kind of like figure that out for me. But once I go into it, like I'm always kind of like, all right, I'm in it to win it now. It's not, is this going to work? It's how do we make this work? And that doesn't mean it's always going to work, but that's kind of my mindset is like, you know, you got to put the effort in. And I don't think people do that. I think there is this illusion of endless opportunity, or as you said, the grass is greener on the other side. It's green until it's dead. And then it's just dead grass again. And that's going to be most of the case.
Yes.
Just bouncing around like that. But I think people are too scared to, or maybe they're not even too scared. They're just endless opportunity to them and they can just move on to the next.
We've also been told that we deserve the best. You deserve the best, right? Like, don't settle for less. And it's like, then it makes you think you're settling because you're dealing with, you know, issues in your relationship and
that you would have no matter what.
You're going to have no matter what, barring abuse, right? Barring physical abuse, sexual abuse. Like I'm talking about kind of typical issues that come up in relationship where it could be feelings of jealousy, where one's communication style is different, attachment style differences, love language differences, vulnerability challenges, fear of intimacy. These are all normal things that are going to come up in relationship. So
what if you addressed them?
Exactly. What if you just stuck it out, stayed in it, worked on it? It's about growing and learning about yourself because you're triggering each other. And when you wonder, how come I can have great relationships with my friends? Why don't I ever feel triggered by my friends? Because you're not intimate in the same way with your friends. You're not having to depend on them in the same way. You're not as vulnerable with your friends. And when you start dealing with the stuff that's coming up in your intimate relationship with your partner, those are things that you need yourself to grow from. That's why it's coming up. It's a mirror that's being held up. Yes.
That's so true. That's such a good way to look at it. And then when you're getting close with that person, and you know, I always think of it like they're going to see me sick, unkept, on the couch with Kleenex shoved up my nose.
Yep.
And I want someone that still wants to be by me when I got Kleenex shoved up my nose because it just feels better than breathing.
Right. And even can laugh with you, not being critical of you, just can like laugh together and be silly together, not take life so seriously. Yeah. So that's the message, right? The takeaway is like, work on what you're in and recognize that it's not going to be perfect. And don't think that jumping to the next person is going to fix it, because it's not.
Oh, so depressing.
Sorry for the reality.
No.
Sorry.
I know. You know, it's interesting because I've been myself. I've been dabbling, and I like to say I've been thinking about starting to date again, and I have been a little bit. And I'm not on any apps, so I meet people in real life, and even the experience of meeting people in real life sometimes feels like an app experience. And it's almost like I can't quite put my finger on it because I've only been dating for like 2 months. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I almost feel, so for the record, I decide, because 2 weeks into dating again, I was an anxious mess. Do I send this text? Is this too soon? Do I double up on this text because I thought of something else to say? All the things. And then I said to myself, you know what? My filter is, what would a secure person do? If they would send the text, I'm going to send the text. If they will ask the person if they want to go on a date, I'm going to ask the person to go on a date. And so I've started changing my mindset to being like, what would a secure person do? They would do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Yep.
Bottom line, they would say what they want to say, do what they want to do. And I do that in every other aspect of my life. So why wouldn't I do it here? So that being said, I find that like even the people I've met in real life, it's the behaviors still mimic the app. It's the weird, like non-committal to plans. It's the weird, I'm going to text you once a day and then I'm not going to text you back until the next. And it's just like, how do you build any kind of like momentum, which I think
you don't.
When you're dating, you've got to build momentum. That's what has been successful for me in the past. But it's just, so then it's kind of like, well, now I'm getting discouraged from meeting people in real life.
It's game playing on steroids. Like when you're having to strategize and second guess yourself every step of the way, that's a problem. Like step into yourself, do what is true for you. Don't worry about what other people are doing. And if you know, like just better understand yourself, which like you're talking about a secure person, take one of these quizzes online. I mean, some of them are hokey and whatever, aren't that accurate, but like about attachment style, find out, are you an anxiously attached person? If so, then you want to kind of think to yourself, okay, am I acting from a place of anxiety because I'm feeling insecure? Then you can ask yourself, how could I be acting from a place of a securely attached person? You act as if. Sometimes in life we have to act as if.
Fake it till you make it.
You fake it till you make it. There's so many points in my career and in my just emotion, like I've had to fake it till I make it. Yes. There's so much.
That's me. I'm gonna keep acting through the lens of a secure person until I'm back to being a secure person.
And guess what happens? Neuronal pathways, right? Our brain is neuroplastic. It's flexible. You can grow another pathway in your brain. So you keep acting as if you're secure and it will just start becoming automatic. You don't even have to think so hard about it.
That's a good point.
So I like that. I like your message. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Be true to be who you be real. Don't overthink it. Don't engage in games. They're stupid. They don't work.
They're so stupid and they don't work.
No.
And if you, again, I don't know everything at all, especially about relationships, but I know what my experiences have been. And I feel like when I've had, relationships or dating that has turned into relationships, I'll say, it has been about momentum. It has been, we had a good date and then we made plans for a second date, or we met up the next day for coffee or drinks again or something. And then the texting or the calling, and you kind of like, you start behaving as if you're interested in this person and you're not forcing it. And I'm not saying you talk to them all day, every day for, the next month or two, but like you sort of like make those steps as if you're kind of moving in them together. And then if something happens, it doesn't work out. Hey, you gave it the college try, right? But if you just one message, back and forth, non-committal to plans. Like I have rules that I implement now. Like one is I will ask you to hang out twice. And if you don't, if you can't, or you cancel and you don't propose another plan, I'll text you once a day for the rest of my life. And I'm not asking you again.
Yeah.
Or even when I was even on the dating apps, it was, I will talk to you 3 times. If you don't ask me anything about me, done. Not responding anymore.
It's like, why are people bothering? If they're going to put a half-ass effort in, don't bother. But I think, which we don't have time today to talk about, I'd love to talk about this another time, but the addictive element of the swiping and not actually moving to the next step, because they're in that, they just keep matching with another person and engaging, and it just keeps everything on the surface. There's no depth. Right. There's no forward progress. You're just feeling like, wow, I matched with this other hot person. And, and you're elusive. You're not making yourself available because actually you're chasing that serotonin dopamine hit.
Yeah. Well, I think this is an advertisement for matchmaking, and I want to ask you, to be respectful of your time, and also ask you, what is the matchmaking process like working with you?
Yeah. So I know we got to end in a second, but I'll just, the long of the short is just really reaching out to us, to my team, and learning about the process. I think that people don't really know. They're looking at television and there's some similarities when I think of the way that it's depicted on TV, but it's also different. It's very private. It's very personalized. Basically, we search, we screen, we vet potential matches for our clients. And we don't work with everybody. We work with people that we feel we can be successful with. So that's another thing. Some people feel rejected when we have to turn them away, but it's really, you've got to be relationship ready and you've got to be receptive to coaching, because that's a part of the process. We all have blind spots, and
it's like the secret weapon, I feel like, is the coaching.
It's so important. And a lot of people that come to us are like, I know what I want. I just I'm having trouble finding exactly what I want. And they think that that's what it's all about, is that we have access to really qualified singles. But it's more than that. It's like, okay, well, we can present this person to you, but we can't make the relationship work unless you are open and receptive to our feedback and we know what we're talking about. So it's humbling. And these are powerful people. These are successful people that come to us that have big careers, and they're used to they're used to ordering people, right? You do this for me. They're used to outsourcing, and they need to really be willing to step into the vulnerability and recognize that there's work to be done there, and to be successful, we've got to work together collaboratively. So just reach out to us, and we can share all about how we do what we do and determine whether we can work with you.
And trust your process, because it's working for a lot of people. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
But before we head out, give you a chance to ask me anything.
What was it like to get married so you got married on national television?
Yeah, Love is Blind. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, don't go back and watch it.
I need to now. This is like,
the weirdest part was kind of like instantly being recognizable everywhere, but everyone thinking they know you, but like no one actually knowing you. And it's funny because like I never expected in a million years that I would be known for like my relationship. I'm kind of like a put your head down, do the work, let your work speak for what you do, right? And who you are. And if I ever had any kind of like clout or fame or anything, I always thought I would be president, or I would be a filmmaker, because that was what I wanted to be when I was growing up, or like these things where it was always about like my ideas, not about me. And then it became like about me, and no one really cared about my ideas.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like, that was like a weird transition to go through. So that was the weirdest part. And then everybody thinking they know your relationship, and they don't. Like they just don't.
So what's the one silver lining that came out of that experience?
Well, I actually have a couple of silver linings. There's a lot of good work that I've been able to do to I mean, I could go on and on. I'm not going to I started a nonprofit to support mental health, legal support, and advocate for change for reality cast members.
Amazing.
We actually just got the National Labor Relations Board to say that Love is Blind cast members are employees. So there's a lot of good stuff that is going to come out of that. And then also I get to make a lot of people's day just by taking a picture with them or saying hi. And it's like the simplest thing in the world for me to do, but sometimes it can make someone's day. And I really appreciate being able to do that.
Love it. Love it. There's always silver linings, right? I always say
Exactly.
You got to just look a little deeper and give it some time. It will reveal itself. So yeah.
Exactly.
Nick, where can
people connect with you and find you online?
Okay. All over. Just drfrankie.com. If you're straight and you're interested in learning more about matchmaking, you can find more information there. If you're queer, go to littlegaybook.com. And also littleblackbookmatchmaking.com if you're straight. And you can find me on social media. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Every week I put out a new VO. Love, Laughs, and Lessons is my podcast. And that is also under Dr. Frankie Bashan. And I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook, and just Google. You'll see lots of it.
You don't even have to Google. All those links are actually in the show notes down below. So
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I enjoyed this conversation with you. I'm going to have you again because I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Likewise. I would love to be here again with you.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.